For centuries, the planets and star systems that made up the Galactic Council had regarded Earth with a mixture of indifference and condescension. Its primitive technology, sparse population, and vast untamed wilderness were seen as nothing more than an irrelevant backwater, a harmless oddity in the vastness of the cosmos. The Council's diplomats and merchants had little interest in engaging with the isolated human civilization, content to let it stagnate beyond the periphery of their empire. But that all changed when scout ships returned from Earth with detailed scans of the planet's surface. Hidden deep within the sprawling jungles, the scouts had detected rich deposits of rare minerals and resources that would be invaluable to the Galactic Council's war machine. The calculations were clear. The benefits of controlling these reserves far outweighed the minimal effort required to subjugate the native population. The Council wasted no time in mobilizing its military forces. Legions of battle-hardened alien soldiers were assembled, their impressive array of advanced weaponry and powered armor dwarfing the simple tools of the primitive humans. Vast transport ships ferried the invasion force to the edge of the solar system, where they established a secure staging area on one of the moons orbiting Jupiter. From there, the alien soldiers began their descent to the jungle-covered continents of Earth, certain of an easy and decisive victory. Unbeknownst to the invaders, they were being closely watched. High in the Andes Mountains of South America, a small team of U.S. Army Special Forces operators had been monitoring the alien activities for weeks, relaying detailed intelligence back to command. Leading the group was Captain Jack Rice, a hardened veteran with 2 decades of experience in covert operations. "This is not going to be the cakewalk the brass thinks it is," Rice muttered, his eyes narrowed as he studied the data feeds from the reconnaissance drones. "These aliens have some serious firepower, but they've made the same mistake every invader does. They've underestimated the jungle." His second-in-command, Sergeant Emily Chen, nodded in agreement. "The foliage and terrain will definitely give us an advantage, but we can't take these guys lightly. Their technology is light years beyond ours. We're going to have to get creative if we want to have any chance of slowing them down." Reyes grunted. "That's why we're the best the Army's got. Time to put all that training to use." He turned to the rest of the squad, his voice hardening. "All right, listen up. The aliens have arrived, and they're headed straight for the Amazon. We're going to get in there first and set the stage. I want tripwires, claymore mines, booby traps, anything and everything to slow those tin cans down. Chen, coordinate with the CIA and NSA. See if we can get some cyber support to disrupt their comms. The rest of you, gear up and get ready to move out. We've got a jungle to defend." As the sun set over the ends, the Special Forces operators vanished into the night, racing to reach the Amazon before the alien invasion force. Rice knew they were up against an overwhelming technological advantage, but he also knew the true strength of the human spirit. These aliens had no idea what they were about to face in the unforgiving wilderness of Earth. The massive alien transport ships descended through the atmosphere, their anti-gravity drives kicking up great plumes of dust and foliage as they settled onto clearings carved out of the dense Amazon jungle. Hatches cycled open and legions of alien soldiers spilled forth, their bulky armored frames and advanced weaponry a stark contrast to the lush greenery that surrounded them. At the forefront of the invading force was Commander Xylov, a battle-hardened veteran of countless campaigns across the galaxy. His 4-fingered hands gripped the control grips of his plasma assault rifle as he surveyed the unfamiliar terrain with narrowed eyes. "Spread out the units and secure the perimeter," he barked to his subordinates in the guttural tongue of his species. "I want patrols sweeping the area within the hour. Any sign of the native population is to be eliminated immediately." The soldiers hurried to carry out their orders, fanning out into the jungle with weapons at the ready. Xylov watched them go, his mandibles clicking in annoyance. This assignment was supposed to be a simple resource extraction operation, but already he could sense an underlying tension in the air, a palpable sense of unease that set his nerves on edge. "There's something off about this place," he muttered to himself. Keep your guard up, soldiers. These humans may be primitive, but they're hiding something. Deep within the undergrowth, Reyes and his Special Forces team observed the alien activity with grim focus. They had arrived days earlier, meticulously scouting the landing zones and establishing a web of traps and ambush points. Now, as the alien invaders fanned out, the human operators tensed, their fingers hovering over trigger guards. "Hold your fire," Reyes murmured into the comms, his eyes narrowed. "Let them get a little deeper. I want them good and lost before we spring the trap." Chen crouched beside him, her rifle cradled in her arms. "You really think these guys will fall for it? Their scanners must be pretty advanced. They'll detect the tripwires and mines in no time." Reyes allowed himself a faint, humorless smile. "Oh, I'm counting on that. That's where the fun part comes in." As the alien patrols pushed further into the jungle, Reyes and his team silently watched, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The invaders spread out, their sensors sweeping the environment for any signs of the native population. But the jungle remained still, the only sound the muted rustling of leaves. Suddenly, one of the alien scouts stumbled, his weapon clattering to the ground as he was yanked into the foliage by an unseen force. Shouts of alarm rang out as the other soldiers raised their weapons, scanning frantically for the source of the attack. More traps were triggered in rapid succession. Tripwires detonating claymore mines, branch-triggered projectile launchers, and concealed pitfalls that sent hapless aliens tumbling into the undergrowth. The once disciplined patrols descended into chaos as the soldiers struggled to regain their bearings, their sophisticated sensors apparently unable to penetrate the jungle's natural obfuscation. Xyloth roared orders into his comm unit, his mandibles clicking furiously. "Reform the lines. Maintain cohesion and advance cautiously. These primitive beasts will not outwit us." But his words were drowned out by the continued explosions and the anguished cries of his fallen comrades. The aliens, so confident in their technological superiority, now found themselves disoriented and vulnerable in the unforgiving terrain. Reyes watched the unfolding pandemonium with grim satisfaction. "That's it. You tin-plated bastards. Dance for us." Chen glanced at him, a faint smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "You know, I almost feel bad for them. Almost." "Don't," Reyes replied, his tone hardening. "These aliens came here to take what's ours. Now they're about to learn a very painful lesson about underestimating the human spirit." As the sound of battle echoed through the jungle, the Special Forces operators began to move, slipping deeper into the undergrowth to prepare the next phase of their ambush. The alien invaders had taken the bait. Now it was time to show them the true meaning of resistance. Chaos reigned in the depths of the Amazon jungle as the alien invasion force found itself assailed from all sides. Reyes and his Special Forces team had laid an intricate web of traps and ambush points, each one designed to capitalize on the invaders' unfamiliarity with the terrain and their over-reliance on technology. One by one, the alien patrols were picked off, their advanced sensors and communications disrupted by expertly placed explosive devices and camouflaged sniper teams. Desperate calls for reinforcement echoed through the jungle, only to be met with more mayhem as the human operators struck with lightning speed and precision. Commander Xyloth's mandibles clicked in growing frustration as he watched his carefully planned operation unravel. His soldiers were becoming increasingly demoralized, their confidence shaken by an unseen enemy that seemed to materialize and vanish at will. "Restore order, damn you," he bellowed into the comm unit. "I want those human vermin rooted out and eliminated. Intensify the sweeps, deploy more drones. I don't care what it takes, but find them." The alien troops surged forward, their heavy boots trampling the undergrowth as they advanced in tighter formations. Overhead, small reconnaissance drones buzzed through the canopy, their sensors scanning for any signs of movement. But the jungle remained eerily still, the only sounds the occasional crack of a branch or the distant call of some unseen creature. Reyes observed the alien activity from his concealed vantage point, His eyes narrowed in concentration. They're getting smarter. We're going to have to change up our tactics. Chen nodded beside him, her gaze fixed on the approaching soldiers. These guys aren't going to give up easily. Their tech may be advanced, but they're still not used to operating in an environment like this. We've got the home field advantage. For now, Rise replied grimly. But they'll adapt eventually. We need to keep them off balance, keep them guessing. He keyed his radio, barking orders to the rest of the team. Set up the secondary ambush points, but be ready to move quickly. I want surprises waiting for them around every corner. As the alien forces pressed deeper into the jungle, they encountered more and more evidence of the human defenders' handiwork. Tripwires and hidden traps continued to take their toll, while sporadic gunfire from unseen snipers whittled down their numbers. Xyloth's frustration mounted with every lost soldier, his mandibles clicking furiously. "Spread out the units, damn you," he roared. "Fan out and flush these cowards from their hiding places." The soldiers complied, their sensors sweeping the terrain as they advanced cautiously. But as they moved, the jungle seemed to come alive around them. Branches and vines suddenly lashed out, ensnaring hapless aliens and dragging them into the undergrowth. Concealed pitfalls opened up, swallowing entire squads in a cascade of earth and foliage. Xyloth's eyes widened in shock as he watched his forces disintegrate. "What sorcery is this?" he bellowed, his weapon held at the ready. "Show yourselves, you cowards." As if in response, a volley of projectiles suddenly rained down from the canopy, punching through the alien's armor with devastating precision. Xyloth whirled, his plasma rifle blazing, but his shots found only empty air as the snipers vanished back into the foliage. Battered and demoralized, the alien troops began to falter, their once disciplined advance dissolving into a panicked retreat. Xyloth roared orders, desperate to regain control of the situation, but his words were drowned out by the sound of explosions and the anguished cries of his soldiers. Rise watched the chaos unfold, a grim smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "That's it, you sons of bitches. Run." Chen glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "You know they're not going to give up that easily. This is just the beginning." Rise nodded, his grip tightening on his rifle. "I know, but we got them on the run for now. And that's all that matters." As the battered alien forces retreated, Reyes and his team melted back into the jungle, already planning their next move. The invaders had made a grave mistake in underestimating the human spirit, a mistake they were about to pay for dearly. As the battered alien invaders regrouped and licked their wounds, Reyes and his Special Forces team melted back into the jungle, their weapons and gear quickly disappearing beneath the dense canopy. The humans had inflicted significant casualties on the alien forces, but Reyes knew it was only a temporary respite. They're going to come back with everything they've got. He muttered to Chen as they made their way through the undergrowth. "We need to find a way to even the playing field. Fast." Chen nodded, her expression grim. "Agreed. Those drones and scanners they're using are making it damn near impossible for us to operate undetected. We need to figure out a way to disable or jam their tech." Rice paused, his eyes narrowing as he considered their options. What about infiltrating their ranks? Get a team inside their perimeter. See if we can shut down their comms and sensors from the inside. Chen raised an eyebrow. "That's a hell of a risk, if we get caught." "I know," Rise interrupted, his tone hardening. "But it might be our best shot at evening the odds. We need intel, and we need it fast. I'll take a 3-man team and see what we can dig up." With a terse nod, Chen relayed the orders to the rest of the squad, and within an hour, Rise was leading a small infiltration team deeper into the jungle. Their objective: to slip past the alien patrols and work their way into the heart of the enemy encampment, gathering critical intelligence and laying the groundwork for a devastating counterattack. As the team drew closer to the alien lines, Rise could feel the tension mounting. Their passage through the undergrowth was unnaturally silent, every step taken with the utmost caution. The invaders' advanced sensors and drones made stealth an absolute necessity, and the smallest mistake could spell disaster. Finally, they'd reached the edge of the alien perimeter, a formidable ring of heavily armed soldiers and defensive emplacements. Rice signaled his team to hold, his eyes scanning the area for any weaknesses or openings they could exploit. "All right, listen up," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Chen, you and Jackson take the west flank. Try to find a way to disable their communications relay. I'll take Jones and go for the central command post. Our objective is to gather as much intel as possible and plant some surprises for when the big push comes." The team members nodded grimly, quickly checking their gear one final time before separating. Rides watched them go, his jaw set in determination. This was their best chance to turn the tide of the battle, if they could just get past the alien defenses and strike at the heart of their operations. Cautiously, Reyes and Jones made their way through the jungle, their movements slow and deliberate. The occasional alien patrol passed nearby, but the humans remained undetected, their camouflage and training allowing them to melt seamlessly into the undergrowth. Finally, they'd reached the edge of the alien command post, a heavily fortified encampment surrounded by a web of sensor arrays and automated turrets. Rice signaled Jones to hold as he crept forward, his eyes narrowed in concentration. After a tense few minutes, Rice returned, his expression grim. "The good news is, I found their main comm relay," he whispered. "The bad news is, it's heavily guarded. We'll need to time this just right if we're going to take it out." Jones nodded, his grip tightening on his rifle. "Just give the word, sir. We're ready." Rice took a deep breath, his mind racing as he plotted their next move. The fate of the entire mission rested on this gambit. If they could disable the alien communications, it would cripple their ability to coordinate and respond to the human resistance. But the risks were high, and the margin for error was slim. As the sounds of the alien patrols grew closer, Rice steeled himself for the coming confrontation. "All right, Jones, let's do this." Rice and Jones tensed as the sound of the alien patrol drew closer, their weapons raised and ready. The infiltration mission had been perilous, with the two Special Forces operators narrowly evading detection as they made their way to the heart of the enemy encampment. Now, crouched in the undergrowth just outside the heavily fortified communications relay, Rice knew they had only one chance to strike. If they failed, the consequences could be catastrophic, not just for their own team, but for the entire human resistance. "Get ready," Rice murmured, his finger hovering over the trigger. "On my mark." As the alien patrol approached, their sensors sweeping the area, Rice counted the seconds in his head. Then, with a terse nod, he signaled Jones, and they burst from their hiding place, their weapons blazing. The aliens were caught completely off guard, their plasma rifles barely managing to return fire before Rice and Jones cut them down in a hail of bullets. The human operators moved with lightning speed, their training and discipline honed to a razor's edge. In seconds, the patrol lay dead at their feet, and Rice wasted no time in pressing forward. "Let's go, Jones. That racket will have them swarming in no time." The two men sprinted towards the communications relay, their footsteps muffled by the dense foliage. Rice could already see the glint of the alien sensors and turrets guarding the vital installation, and he signaled Jones to take cover as they approached. "I'll draw their fire," he shouted. "You get to that relay and plant the charges. We've got to take this thing down, no matter what." Without waiting for a response, Rice surged forward, his assault rifle barking as he unleashed a withering hail of suppressive fire. The alien turrets swiveled to track him, their plasma bolts whizzing through the air as he darted and weaved through the undergrowth. Jones seized the opportunity, his lithe frame allowing him to dart from cover to cover with effortless grace. He reached the base of the relay tower, quickly planting a series of high-explosive charges at the structural supports. Rice watched his teammates' progress with grim satisfaction, his weapon never faltering as he kept the alien defenses focused on him. But even his superhuman reflexes couldn't keep him from taking a glancing hit, the plasma bolt searing through his armor and drawing a hiss of pain. Gritting his teeth, Rais pressed on, refusing to be driven back. If they failed here, the entire human resistance would be crushed. He wouldn't, let that happen. Just as Jones finished rigging the charges, Rais saw the first reinforcements begin to arrive, their heavy footsteps crashing through the jungle. "Get cleared, Jones," he shouted. "I'll hold them off as long as I can." Jones hesitated for a split second, his eyes meeting Rais through the tangle of foliage. Then, with a nod, he turned and vanished back into the undergrowth, leaving Rais to face the oncoming alien horde alone. Rais braced himself, his rifle spitting a steady stream of fire as the first wave of soldiers emerged from the trees. The aliens, their weapons blazing, surged forward, determined to overwhelm the lone human defender. But Rais was a veteran of 100 battles, his skills honed to a razor's edge. He ducked and weaved, his shots finding their mark with unerring precision, leaving a trail of alien bodies in his wake. The air crackled with the roar of weapons fire, but Rais refused to be driven back, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. Finally, with a deafening rumble, the charges on the communications relay detonated, showering the area with twisted metal and debris. The alien forces faltered, their coordinated advance disrupted by the sudden loss of their vital communications hub. Seizing the moment, Rais unleashed a final, withering barrage, his bullets tearing through the invaders' armor with ruthless efficiency. As the surviving aliens turned and fled, he allowed himself a grim smile. "That's right, you bastards," he growled. "Run." Rais watched as the aliens retreated, his chest heaving with exertion. The gambit had worked. The communications relay was down, crippling the invaders' ability to coordinate their forces. But the cost had been high, and Rais knew that the true test was yet to come. As he made his way back into the jungle, the sounds of battle echoing in the distance, Rais steeled himself for the next phase of the conflict. The aliens had underestimated the human spirit, and they were about to pay dearly for that mistake. As the dust settled around the smoldering ruins of the alien communications relay, Commander Xylot's mandibles clicked in barely contained fury. His soldiers had been routed, their carefully orchestrated advance thrown into disarray by the relentless attacks of the human resistance. "Unacceptable," he roared, his four-fingered hands clenching around the grip of his plasma rifle. "Those vermin will pay for this humiliation." Rallying the battered remnants of his forces, Xyloth ordered a renewed push deeper into the jungle, determined to crush the human defenders once and for all. His sensors swept the foliage, searching for any sign of movement, but the dense canopy and thick undergrowth continued to defy his efforts. "Spread out the units," he barked. "I want every inch of this wretched jungle searched. Leave no stone unturned until you find those cowards." The alien soldiers complied, fanning out with their weapons raised, their advanced sensor suites straining to penetrate the veil of green. But as they advanced, the jungle seemed to come alive around them, branches and vines lashing out with startling ferocity. Rais watched the unfolding chaos from his concealed position, his eyes narrowed in concentration. He and his team had spent the last several hours meticulously reinforcing their defensive network, setting up a labyrinth of traps and ambush points designed to blunt the alien onslaught. "They're getting closer," he murmured to Chen, who crouched beside him, her rifle at the ready. "Time to spring the trap." Chen nodded, her grip tightening on her weapon. "Just say the word, Captain. We're ready." As the alien forces pushed deeper into the jungle, their sensors sweeping the environment, they began to encounter more and more evidence of the human defender's handiwork. Tripwires detonated, springing hidden projectile launchers that rained down a hail of shrapnel on the unsuspecting invaders. Carefully camouflaged pitfalls opened up, swallowing entire squads in a cascade of earth and foliage. Xyloth roared in frustration as his troops were decimated, their advanced technology rendered useless in the face of the humans' intimate knowledge of the terrain. He could feel the controls slipping through his fingers, the carefully orchestrated invasion plan unraveling before his eyes. Adaptive targeting, damn you. He snarled into his comm unit. Divert power to the sensor grid and sweep the area for any signs of those cowards. But even as the alien forces adjusted their tactics, the human defenders continued to evade detection, their movements as silent and elusive as the jungle itself. Rise and his team worked in perfect synchronization, striking with pinpoint precision and then vanishing back into the undergrowth before the invaders could mount an effective counterattack. As the alien forces grew increasingly demoralized, Rise knew they had to press their advantage. "All right, listen up," he said, his voice low and urgent. "We're going to hit them hard, right in the heart of their formation. Chen, I want you to lead the main assault. Take Jones, Sanchez, and Nguyen with you. I'll take the rest and hit them from the flanks." Chen's eyes narrowed, but she nodded without hesitation. "Understood, Captain. We'll make them regret the day they set foot on this planet." With a terse nod, Reyes turned to the rest of his team. "All right, people, let's show these aliens what we're made of. Move out." As the Special Forces operators slipped away into the jungle, Silot's mandibles clicked in growing frustration. His soldiers were being whittled down, their morale plummeting in the face of the relentless human onslaught. He could feel the tide of the battle turning, the invincibility he had once taken for granted now slipping through his fingers. "Curse these infernal humans," he growled, his plasma rifle blazing as he led his remaining troops into the treacherous foliage. "They will pay for this humiliation, even if I have to tear this entire jungle apart with my bare claws." The sound of gunfire and explosions echoed through the Amazon as the human defenders launched their most daring assault yet. Rise and his team were determined to seize the initiative, to show the alien invaders that they were a force to be reckoned with. The fate of the entire planet hung in the balance, and the humans refused to go down without a fight. The jungle echoed with the sound of weapons fire and the anguished cries of the alien invaders as Reyes and his Special Forces team launched their assault. Charging through the dense foliage, the human operators struck with lightning speed and precision, their intimate knowledge of the terrain giving them a decisive advantage. Chen led the main thrust, her squad sweeping through the alien lines with a barrage of grenades and automatic fire. The invaders, their sensor suites overwhelmed by the chaos of the ambush, struggled to mount an effective defense, their advanced technology proving woefully inadequate against the human defenders' guerrilla tactics. As the alien forces began to falter, Reyes and his flanking team struck with ruthless efficiency, their shots finding weaknesses in the invaders' armor and cutting them down with devastating effect. The humans moved as a single cohesive unit, their movements fluid and coordinated, each member anticipating the other's actions with uncanny precision. Xyloth roared orders into his comm unit, his mandibles clicking furiously, but his words were drowned out by the deafening cacophony of battle. The alien commander watched helplessly as his carefully assembled invasion force disintegrated before his eyes, his soldiers falling one by one to the relentless human onslaught. "Fall back," he bellowed, his voice tinged with desperation. "Regroup and reassemble the line. We cannot be defeated by these primitive vermin." But the human operators showed no signs of slowing, their momentum building with each passing minute. Rise and his team pressed the attack, their weapons never faltering as they drove the invaders back, inflicting heavy casualties and sowing chaos in their ranks. As the alien forces began to retreat, Rise allowed himself a grim smile. "That's right, you bastards. Run." Chen glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Don't get cocky, Captain. This is far from over." Rise nodded, his jaw set in determination. "I know, but we got them on the ropes now. Time to finish the job." Rallying his team, Rise led the pursuit, his squad moving with practiced efficiency as they harried the retreating alien forces. The invaders, their morale shattered, were in full retreat, their vaunted technology no match for the human defenders' sheer tenacity and skill. Xyloth gritted his mandibles in fury as he watched his forces disintegrate, his grip tightening on his weapon. The humans had proven to be far more formidable than he had ever anticipated, their tactics and resourcefulness defying everything the Galactic Council had assumed about the primitive species. Curse these infernal creatures, he snarled, his eyes narrowed in a mixture of rage and grudging respect. They will not stop us, no matter what it takes. Signaling his remaining troops to fall back, Xyloth ordered a strategic withdrawal, his mind racing as he formulated a new plan of attack. The humans had humbled him, their resistance shattering the arrogance that had once defined the Galactic Council's view of Earth. As the alien forces retreated, Reyes and his team paused, their weapons at the ready. Chen glanced at her commander, her expression grave. "They'll be back, Captain," she said quietly. "And next time, they won't underestimate us." Reyes nodded, his gaze sweeping the battered landscape. "I know, but we've bought ourselves some time, at least, and we're going to need every second of it." Turning to his squad, Reyes issued a series of orders, his voice firm and resolute. "All right, listen up. We've shown these aliens what we're made of, but this fight is far from over. We need to regroup, resupply, and reinforce our defenses. I want every trap, every ambush point, and every ounce of firepower we can muster, because when those bastards come back, we're going to be ready for them." The squad members nodded, their faces set with a steely determination. They had faced the might of the Galactic Empire and prevailed, and they were not about to let their victory slip through their fingers. As the sun began to set over the Amazon, the sound of the retreating alien forces faded into the distance. Reyes and his team melted back into the jungle, already planning their next move. The fate of the world hung in the balance, and they were determined to defend their home at all costs. As the sun rose over the battered and bruised Amazon jungle, Captain Jack Reyes and his Special Forces team emerged from the undergrowth, their weapons slung over their shoulders. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and spent ordnance, a testament to the fierce battle that had raged through the night. Reyes took a deep, steadying breath, his eyes sweeping the devastated landscape. The alien invaders had been routed, their vaunted technology and superior firepower proving no match for the sheer tenacity and skill of the human defenders. But he knew this was only a temporary respite. "They'll be back," he murmured, his jaw set in grim determination. "And we need to be ready for them." Beside him, Sergeant Emily Chen nodded, her expression somber. "The whole world is watching us now, Captain. We can't afford to lose this fight." Reyes turned to face his squad, his voice firm and resolute. "Listen up, people. This is far from over. Those aliens may have retreated for now, but you can bet your ass they're already planning their next move. We need to shore up our defenses, resupply, and prepare for the fight of our lives." The squad members nodded, their faces set with a steely determination. They had faced the might of the Galactic Empire and prevailed, and they were not about to let their hard-won victory slip through their fingers. As they set to work, Reyes couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. Just weeks ago, the idea of humanity standing up to an interstellar invasion force would have seemed laughable. But now, with the world watching, they had proven that the human spirit was a force to be reckoned with. "We've shown them what we're made of," he said, his voice tinged with pride. "Now it's time to prove it to the rest of the galaxy." The alien forces, meanwhile, had retreated to their fortified staging area on the moon, their battered and demoralized troops licking their wounds. Commander Xyloth paced the command center, his mandibles clicking in a mixture of fury and grudging respect. "Unacceptable," he growled, his four-fingered hands clenched into fists. "These humans have proven far more resilient than the Council ever anticipated. We cannot underestimate them again." Xyloth turned to his subordinates, his tone hardening. "Reinforce the troops, double the sensor grid, and mobilize every asset we have. This time, we will crush them with overwhelming force." The alien soldiers set to work, their movements efficient and disciplined. They had learned a painful lesson about the tenacity of the human defenders, and they were determined not to make the same mistakes again. Back on Earth, Rice and his team continued their preparations, fortifying their defenses and stockpiling every piece of equipment and ordnance they could get their hands on. They knew that the coming battle would be the decisive moment, a test of their skill and resolve against the full might of the Galactic Empire. As the days turned to weeks, the tension in the jungle grew palpable. The world watched with bated breath, their eyes fixed on the small group of human heroes who stood as the last line of defense against the alien invaders. Finally, the moment of reckoning arrived. The alien forces descended upon the Amazon in a massive, coordinated assault, their weapons blazing and their sensor suites sweeping the terrain with ruthless efficiency. But Reyes and his team were ready. Utilizing the traps and ambush points they had meticulously prepared, the human defenders unleashed a withering barrage of fire, their shots finding weaknesses in the aliens' armor and bringing their advance to a grinding halt. The battle raged for hours, the air thick with the acrid smell of plasma and the deafening roar of weapons. Sylov, his mandibles clicking in fury, led his troops in a desperate push, determined to break through the human lines at any cost. But Reyes and his squad were unyielding, their discipline and resolve hardened by the trials they had faced. They fought with a ferocity born of the knowledge that the fate of the entire world rested on their shoulders, their weapons never faltering as they whittled down the alien forces one by one. Finally, as the sun began to set, the last of the invaders retreated, their defeat snatched from the jaws of victory. Xylov, his eyes smoldering with rage, ordered a full withdrawal, his forces in disarray. Reyes watched the alien ships depart, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "That's right, you bastards," he murmured. "Run." As the jungle fell silent, the human defenders emerged from their hiding places, their faces etched with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. They had proven their worth, not just to the alien invaders, but to the entire world. And now, as the legend of their tenacity and skill spread through the stars, they knew that the name Jack Reyes would echo through the galaxy, commanding the respect and fear of the Galactic Council forevermore.